In this presentation, I'll be covering two issues relating to the ethics of social media companies. One, these companies collect excessive amounts of data from users, resulting in an invasion of privacy. And two, these companies hold a near monopoly in their markets, preventing healthy competition that ensures that customers have the best experience. The second issue exacerbates the first by allowing companies to engage in intrusive behavior without fear of customers switching to competitors. So let's begin with a discussion of the first point, which is that social media companies collect too much data. While using social media, people inevitably have to provide personal information such as name, birth date, geographic location, and personal interests. And in the process, your behavior on these platforms is monitored. The purpose is to display targeted advertisements and share data with third parties in a process called social media mining. And often this is done without the user's consent. Granted, this is their business model. This is how social media companies make money, but we still need to scrutinize these actions to make sure they're ethical. A study published in 2017 by researchers at the University College London kind of shows the power of social media data and how much data there is and how that can be used almost against people. These researchers used Twitter data available through the Twitter streaming API to enhance digital out-of-home advertisements at the London Underground. So for example, the digital billboards are considered digital out-of-home advertisements. And using this API, the researchers collected data on the specific underground station that these Twitter users were at, the time of the tweet, and the content of the tweet. And over the course of 1 year, 10.5 million tweets were collected. And that data was very detailed and produced very specific results. For example, one thing they found was almost 40% of tweets posted between 6 p.m. and midnight on weekends at the North Greenwich station were about music. So there's a vast amount of data out there in social media, and these researchers recommended that this data could be used to create targeted advertising. But this example just kind of illustrates how much data there is and how much people can discover based off your social media information. According to the Yale Law School, these privacy considerations are important because we need to protect the freedom of speech of social media users. People need to feel safe sharing things on social media and feel assured that that information isn't being used for purposes that they didn't agree to. These companies do have privacy policies, but they need to work to uphold them. Otherwise, you get situations like the controversy surrounding Facebook and Cambridge Analytica a few years ago, in which Cambridge Analytica collected data on over 50 million Facebook users and used that to cater to personal biases and influence the 2016 presidential election. And this results in what is called exploitation of human beings through data by professors at the London School of Economics and Political Science and at the State University of New York at Oswego. And these professors call these actions data colonialism because they generate massive amounts of profit from the vast amount of data they have on their users, but the users don't get anything in return. Now we'll move on to the second issue, which is that social media companies have effectively become monopolies. This issue of monopolies is particularly acute in the world of social media because there's a high entry barrier. Existing companies have all the users, so new customers who are looking to join social media platforms will rather choose the existing ones than the new ones because the new ones have fewer users, and users is what social media is all about. But in spite of that advantage, Facebook has actively pursued monopoly power, even though they already have so much to begin with. Just this past December, the Federal Trade Commission, or FTC, along with the attorneys general of 46 states, sued Facebook for anti-competitive behavior. And the allegations are that Facebook bought up any emerging companies that they viewed as threats to their dominance, such as Instagram in 2012 and WhatsApp in 2014. The allegations also include that Facebook imposed anti-competitive conditions on third-party access to the platforms through APIs. And this access was only allowed on the condition that the third parties not engage in activity that boosts competition with Facebook. And the FTC also alleges that Facebook deceived users about their privacy. And all of these actions that Facebook took were to eliminate competition rather than compete fairly. And that makes it even harder for emerging companies to gain traction. But finally, we'll explore how to alleviate the ethical issues that have been raised. The focus here will be on Facebook because they're by far the most powerful social media company. So some actions that can be taken that are supported by law, such as the Clayton Law and the Clayton Act and the Sherman Act, are requiring Facebook to be explicit about tracking data usage and allow users to opt out. Um, Facebook could be compelled to give users to block could be compelled to give users the ability to block the company from combining data about Facebook usage with data about their usage of other websites or apps. And in fact, this has been something that's been recently done by German antitrust authorities. They could be forced to sell off WhatsApp and Instagram to prevent their anti-competitive behaviors from going too far. And Facebook could be required to provide cross-platform operability with other social media sites. And all of these actions would increase competition and protect users. And this potential increased competition also means that new companies can pressure Facebook to be more careful with user data by drawing away users who are concerned about Facebook. Because then users would have a choice. Either they can choose Facebook or they can choose someone else to use for their social media. And then in that case, Facebook would need to work to keep users by respecting their personal information. So that additional pressure by taking away Facebook's monopoly would force Facebook to be more considerate of how they use users' data. And that would solve kind of both problems with one solution.